Hello the internet and welcome to Wednesday streams. This is episode 4 of Let's Go Build a Bot, where we are building ourselves a bot in Go. You'll spot the wonderful dad joke in the name of the title. So in session 1 we set up a new project, put that into Git, got a sort of a basic framework in place where we could do stuff, and started fleshing out how we were going to arrange everything. Session 2 we connected to Discord. We got some interaction with the bot, albeit nothing particularly useful. And in session 3 we started the migration to running it on AWS and running it properly. Something I'm very glad that I moved to session 3 because it allows me to continue in this particular session. Having spoken to Alex, he has suggested that we continue this stream into February, because there's more that we can add to the bot beyond where we'll get to by the end of today's session. Now, it should be pointed out that this is not a pre-prepared toy that I can throw together in the sort of 4-ish hours that I have, or 8 hours even, I'll do maths, nor is it some actual toy program. This is real world. It's something that we are going to use, and because of that, it's going through an evolution as we write it, and it's very, very deliberate that I'm doing it like this, because I dislike watching these very polished or very highly prepared things where you get to see the basics of how something is put together and works, but you don't actually get to see how it interacts in the real world, and you sort of follow along and then you're thinking, where do I go from here? So this is warts and all. You will get to see me Google the internet a lot, you'll get to see me make mistakes, you'll get to see me wonder why things don't compile. And that's very deliberate. That said, what we're doing is something that I do day to day. I'm a Go programmer by profession. I have written bots in Go before. I've done deployments to AWS in a fashion that we're going to do before. So it shouldn't be new, but it may not be as slick as some of the presentations. Anyway, with that in mind, let's move to the laptop. You'll notice that our Discord bot channel has not had any activity since the last stream, when people discovered that they could put messages on here. I will leave it as it is at the moment and create a new channel if I need to. Let's here, and where did we get to? Let's just quickly let's move you out of the way. Let's go have a look at Bitbucket. I think we'll find that the issue that we were working on remains open because we did not finish it. Why are you not logging me in? It's because I clicked on the ad. There you are, log in. Has a habit of doing this to me on Wednesdays, and I thought I was going to get away with it today because it made me log in this morning. Spinning cursor. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will move. Oops, wrong window. I will move OBS off the screen, and hopefully that should speed my machine up somewhat. Let's try reloading this page. Bitbucket does have some fairly heavy JavaScript going on. Right, GoBot. One of the other things we did last week is we raised a bug in one of my libraries that I'm using, and I have fixed that bug. So that should work. Issues. Learn to read. So make run on AWS. Wonderful, wonderful issue title there. And like I say, it's still open because we haven't completed it. Although we have pushed the branch that we were using because the work has been done to a state where it needs to be committed. So we're on main, but it's only been done insofar as we've got the code review has been accepted, and it's pushed out. Let's just move those two around. So I've got Safari where I expect it to be. So if we go have a look at our commits, we've merged in that issue 4, and then if we have a look, I haven't tagged it yet because that will not work. So if you recall, on a pull request it builds a Docker image. When I push it to main, it builds another Docker image, and we can check that on ECS. Repositories. Am I in the correct region? Yes. And I've got some images up there. While we're here, and while I remember, let's just shove a lifecycle policy on here and say any untagged since image pushed 14 days will expire at kill untagged images. So this just basically stops the repository from filling up with loads of different versions, because versions are going to get retagged for main. It shouldn't cost me a huge amount. I believe these are all stored in S3, so it's dirt cheap, but there's no point in having extra cost. And one of the things you can do is you can also turn around and say, right, if you've got something that's tagged, perhaps only keep the last 10 tagged images or whatever, so you only keep the last a few versions. If I start pushing lots of versions of this up, I may change them. But anyway, we've got our main, which was where we do merge. We've got our dev image. Now we want to push to live, but it will fail because we do not have anything set up to run it. So our Bitbucket pipeline is saying, go run this Docker container in this Fargate service. And we haven't set any of that up. We didn't manage to get around to doing that. So let's do that now. So we want to be going to, actually we're in the right place. We want to be going to clusters. And we need to create ourselves a cluster, and this is going to be a networking only cluster powered by AWS Fargate. We don't need EC2 instances for this. I already have a VPC and subnets, so don't need that. Cluster name is going to be Gobotto, I'm turning Japanese. Don't need to create a VPC, already got one of them. Not going to bother with tags, not going to bother with CloudWatch Container Insights because I believe that costs more. And I can normally glean what's going on from my logs and various other things. There is my cluster created. Wonderful. Now, I don't know if I'm doing this right, but I believe there is now a chicken and egg problem insofar as I cannot push my image until I've got a service running. I cannot create a service until I've got a task definition, and my task definition is in my Git repo. So the way I get around this, and like I said, this may not be the correct way of doing it, but this is the way I do it, is just go off and create a brand new task definition, which we will overwrite fairly soon. So we don't need any task roles. It's not doing anything specific. That's IAM roles for it to go off and do stuff. It's not going to be memory or CPU intensive, so let's set the absolute minimum for that. We need to add a container, and the container name, let's see if I can go off and I can never remember which way around this goes. I think that's going to be GoBot, and then that is going to be what we had in the previous screen, which let's just cancel out of this, fire up a new, can I do it from, no, fire up a new thing that I can copy from. And my container name. Let's have a look and see if it'll tell me if I've got it wrong. So add container. Try that. Don't think I need to put private repository because it's within AWS. Although it is a private repository, I think it knows that it can talk to it. I'm not worried about memory limits. I don't care about port mappings either for this because I've not got anything incoming. If I had a web server or something, then maybe I would need that. My command for running it is going to be just that. -C. Right. We need an S3 bucket. I can't remember whether we set that up last week or not. So let's just boot off to S3. Wait for that to load. Yes, we did. Now, what is the HTTP URL for this? Oh, I don't have any objects in it. Right, so we need to upload some of those, which means we are going to need initially, I think, just a blank config file. So, do that. Add files. Dum 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 dum. Conf. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename that. Show.json. Having a bit of a brain fart there and not remembering what type of format it is. Right, let's try that again. Add files. Show.json. Choose for upload. Upload that. Hurrah. There's my empty file. And this now should have a lovely object URL, which we can then go over to here and point the GoBot at it. Now, again, I can't remember whether we set this up last week. We'll soon find out. But the IAM role that the S3 bucket has been set up so that anything running within the VPC should be able to access it via HTTPS. So despite the fact the bucket is locked down and we haven't given any sort of access, this instance should be able to read that file. Health checks. Don't actually have any health checks. Might need to add something like that later. Oh, hang on. I'm being stupid. That is my health check command. Let's go down here. I wondered why there wasn't. Let's see if that will work. I may need to fiddle around with that. Working directory I don't care about. I think most of this rubbish I can ignore about. It'll soon tell me if things have gone wrong. Just want to quickly edit that because I didn't put the tag that I wanted. That wants to be We don't have a latest. That must be main for now. Let's just quickly update that. All of that we can take default. Right, so that is creating my Fargate role. So let's view the task definition, which has gone off. This is now revision 1, and basically it'll keep all the revisions as we go through. That hopefully should be the only time that I fiddle with that through the AWS console. From now on it should be handled by the build, although we may have to come back and fix up some things. Let's just have a quick check and see how that works. So we go into our cluster, we create a new service. It's a Fargate service. The family of tasks we just created is Astro. There's only one revision, so we're going to take that. The platform version is the latest. Going to run it on the GoBot cluster. We're calling this Astro. Number of tasks 1. I don't know really about the minimum and maximum healthy percent, because if I change that to 100 and 100, because to my mind, if you're running one service, you want 100% running all the time, it complains. But if you leave it at 100, 200, it works. Deployment update, well, we're not doing anything fancy here. It's just one instance, so a rolling update's absolutely fine. ECS managed tags will keep. Off to the next step. Don't have any app mesh. The only thing I might do differently if this was like a web service or something is add a load balancer here, but I don't need to for this. This is the VPC that I created before, and I can turn around and how have I said this? Okay, it is just. I can turn around and say that actually this will run in any one of these subnets, and those subnets are distributed between these 3 availability zones that AWS have. So actually this has just become fault tolerant. Because if it goes down and that availability zone has disappeared, it'll get spun up again in a different availability zone. I'm going to put an empty security group in here. Access for Astro bot, because I don't think it actually needs any access. It's all egress, not ingress. But just in case we need to add stuff, we'll have an empty thing there. Need to assign an IP address, because if I don't, it won't have access to the internet, and I don't have a proxy gateway set up. I can't do the health check grace periods because I don't have a load balancer set up on that. So no load balancer. Don't worry about app mesh. Auto scaling, don't adjust, because I only need one instance running, and then we can review and just go create service, and now we should watch it fall over in a crumpled heap. It's generally what happens on the first launch. Not least because even if I have everything set up correctly, my config file is empty. There we go. So it's provisioning the task. So what's happening in the background here is servers are being spun up, Docker images have been downloaded, and so on and so forth. So I don't have to worry about anything of the what EC2 instances this is running on or anything like that. All that happens under the covers. All I care about is that my Docker image will at some point run or not. Now that's interesting. It's not running anymore. We've stopped, so we can click in through the task, and we can have a look at what happened here. Let's have a look at the logs and see what's happened. Standard Linux go user process, no such file or directory. Now that is interesting. Either the entry point I have given it is entirely wrong, or I've put the wrong binary in there. Let's have a look and make sure what our pipelines do. So when we deploy to ECR, we do a down here. So we do a build step, and then we do a make docker. So we go have a look in our make file, and our make docker does do a Linux step. And the Linux step should be building it correctly. Okay, so that shouldn't be the problem. Let's just quickly make the image locally. And sorry, I was just checking the YouTube comments. They're hidden slightly by my pop filter. Let me move my microphone around. Okay, so we've got our Docker image, so I should be able to Docker run -rm, which basically cleans up the image when we're done. What's the image called here? I don't know, it's GoBot. Right, that has run. And we are saying in our Docker file definition that the entry point is GoBot. Let's head back to AWS. Let's go back to our task definition. Actually, let's not. Let's push this live, and then we can sort that. So, have I got all the variables set up in Bitbucket? In our deployments, oops, I'm going to repository settings deployments. We have a whole load of stuff that needs to be set. Under here. I don't think I've set it all. No. Nope. Not having a good day today. Why is that giving me pipelines and not settings on? Thank you. Deployments. Not sure what happened there. So, ECS. I have service name and AWS region set up. However, my pipeline is going to need a whole load more. So let's see which ones of these we've got set globally. Which ones are repository variables. So we've got AWS ID set, region, yes, no, it's default region. I need to set the AWS region. Binary and image have been set, but they're not used. Right, so most of this actually needs to be set up. Right, and apologies for the bouncing back and forth. Small screen, and need to confer across two things. So let's go to our deployments and let's set up some more things. So ECS, we've got the service name and we've got the AWS region set. Fantastic. We need the cluster. So we're going to add a cluster, which we called GoBot. The service name we've set. Service memory. I think it's 0.25. I'm just going to go check a different deployment on a slightly different screen, because it's quicker for me to check it now than to wait for the build to fail with some odd setting. Again, these are things that get set so infrequently that I tend to just go off and check other deployments that I have. So, actually, these are no longer set there. Drink. Task definition. Oh no, they are set there. Oops. So go check on the other screen. So one of the other things I find is each time I do this, I've learnt more stuff. So every single time the things change ever so slightly as I tweak the process. Right, so it isn't 0.25. Service memory is specified in kilobytes. So we are going to specify 512. Add that, and service CPU is specified just a quarter of a K. I mean, I don't know, but that's what gets spat out if you generate the config file. Service command and service port. Right, service port. We don't need. I'm going to set it just because I don't know whether that's going to cause issues if I don't. But service command is going to be, like I say, absolutely the correct thing to do to have that secured by default, but God, it's annoying. -C, and then our config file. There we go. Add that. And service port we're not using at the moment, but we'll set it. And of course we're going to use 8000 because of course you do. I think we're done. So let's go back and do our first release. So we go to our commits. We confirm that we've got a clean build. We click on the commit and we tag our version, and we're going to tag it v0.0.1. And if you recall, in our pipeline we are checking our tags for v star, so anything after a v on a tag will get picked up. I'm using semver here, so it's version 0, i.e. everything is open to change. If there is an exposed API, don't trust it. The next is a naught, which basically says this is alpha, pre-alpha, and then 1 because this is the first patch that we've pushed out. So tag has been created, and in the background we will have a pipeline kicked off. So that is now building our image, pushing it up, tagging it as latest, and then it's going to go off and try and deploy it to Fargate. At which point we should have a second iteration of our task definition, which, because I still think it's going to fall over in a horrible mess, I can then go edit. But that assumes that this build works. As I said last week, when you're setting up things like this, it would be lovely if you could turn off failures as being failures, because you quite often get a few sort of, oh, I forgot to do this, I forgot to do this, which can't really be checked until such point as you've got the build set up. Now, you'll note that my build times have gone up a little bit. They were sort of 20 odd seconds back when we weren't doing anything, and they've expanded that. That's because we're copying stuff around, moving stuff between the servers, uploading stuff to the cloud. But this shouldn't be too much longer, he says. It also depends on how busy Bitbucket is. So that's done its push to ECR and is now doing our Fargate deploy. Now I knew it would go as far as push to ECR because we've done that bit before. The only thing that's changed is we're tagging it with latest. So if we go off to ECR and we refresh this, you will see that we now have our latest image that's also been tagged with v0.0.1. So we've got a tagged image in there that I can go off and pull down. So latest will move as I do more releases, but that v0.0.1 will always be there. which means if I need to roll back for whatever reason, I can just pull that version and run that version. Ditto in the Git repository, I can just go back to that tag. All right, how are we doing here? Failure! Because... No, it's not helpful because it's in the way. Failed to pass the task definition file, invalid JSON provided. What have I done wrong with that? Now, I don't suppose it's helpful and has the task definition file for me to play with, but I have it here, and I know what commands I ran on it. I suspect what has happened is that there has been some stripping of quotes that has caused things to go slightly wrong. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to pop up the Bitbucket settings for this repository on my other screen, so you won't be able to see it, but it's just literally so I can get a few variables, because I'm going to manually run the changes to the changes to that file that get run during the build. First of all, it would help if I had the correct workspace. And go off to GoBot, and I'll just pull those values. So, in our build, we do the following, which I can just do yoink and watch the machine beach ball, new file. Temptation here is just to call it test.sh, but that's going to cause me a world of pain because test is actually a binary. In Unix land, I discovered that many years ago when it's like, why is this not working? So we're just going to call this, I don't know, drawing an absolute, just call it gobot.sh. Of course my, oops. My plugin for Bash isn't currently working because nope, don't want to do that. Ding. Code. I have a shell script format installed. I'll deal with that later. We'll leave that as is, it doesn't really matter for running it. Okay, so AWS ID, well, it doesn't really matter. We've just got something like that. AWS region, we set to, that's under the deployments. But I think it was EU West 2. Yes, it was. The cluster we set to GoBot. The service name we set to Azure. The service memory we set to 512. The service CPU we set to 256. I've got a sneaking suspicion I know what's gone wrong now. The service command, I'm just going to cut and paste that. Or not. Right, Bitbucket is being very bizarre. Let's try that again. That's better, thank you. Right, service command would be that, and service port is 8000. And I'm just going to spell definition.json and change that to something else so I don't overwrite it. Okay, let's save that. Just make it executable and run it. Very interesting. First of all, it'll help if we had the final. What happens if we do that? Oh, of course. No, UCB. Use a local. Yes. No. Version of sed on the Mac is slightly different to the version of sed on Linux. And I know Alex is going to be laughing his little head off right now. However, I think I know what's gone wrong. These bottom two, you'll notice, are have quotes escaped. And that's because they are replacing something that is a string in the JSON. Oops. With something that is not a string. Now, let me just go and make sure. No, service CPU and service memory are fine. Service command, service port are fine. Right, so the only other thing I can think of doing is to basically do the equivalent of printf debugging. And do that. So we actually need to this is issue 4, do that. I'm just going to pop that in. Give me the file. Printf debug the Fargate, deploy, commit that, review that. And we'll go through and we will be that's just popped up on a different screen, so I'm just going to quickly create that pull request, and then I can jump onto it here. So there's the pull request. Just got to wait for that build to pass. I'm very aware that my machine is getting loud. It is OBS. Not much I can do about that. Not that one. That one. Have you built yet? No, you haven't. Bitbucket must be having a slow day. Because normally it is a lot quicker than this. Which is somewhat annoying. This is where we need the I need the girl from Ipanema playing. So we're going to approve that. Merge that. Close the source branch, don't need that anymore. Puddle off over here. Jump to here and just wait for this build to do its thing as well. The reason why I don't run these concurrently is because the pipe commands I'm using I have found problems with if you're trying to run two of them at the same time. It can get itself a little bit confused. So I tend to let one finish before the next one is kicked off. Which does add a minute or so to the build, but we do what we can. And I'm constantly refreshing it on a different screen so as not to have you suffer the constant reload and flash of the screen. And then finally, once that's up, we can tag our second tag. That's gone in. Right. So that's now passed. v0.0.2. Create tag. So another version is now going out. We know this is going to fail, but we should see why it's going to fail in slightly more detail. Because that JSON file is perfectly valid. The little tick up here wouldn't be a tick if there were any problems with that. So it's clearly something that's happening with my variable substitution. It'll be something silly. I wonder if it's to do with service command. Anyway, we shall find out. Again, let me just go check something on a different project. Off to there. Off to that one. And this is why we say never do live demos, because they never ever work. But this is why I like doing live demos, because they never ever work, and actually learning how to work out what's gone wrong can be more valuable than actually just being told this is what you do, because invariably it's going to go wrong for you at some point. And if you don't have the tools and the knowledge to actually go through and sort of debug that and find out what's going on, it can be quite difficult. Especially seeing as this, right, I know what I've done wrong. Especially seeing as this particular setup is very much of my own making. I can't Google this issue. I know what the problem is, but I don't know what's causing the problem, if that makes sense. However, I have just checked another project, and I think I know what my problem is. We are replacing our service command here as a single string in a list of command strings. If I go have a look at the deployment variables I have set, what I have given it is a set of unquoted strings. That is why our thing is failing. Also, having a look at my other one, we didn't need the command to run it, because that's handled by the entry point. So if I update that, that should fix the issue that we were seeing. If I now go back to my pipelines, I believe I heard a ding of my email telling me that yes, it has failed. There is my printf debugging, and there in fact is the problem. So I fixed that, because that is now part of the deployment settings, and I think I can just turn around and go rerun the failed steps, which for some bizarre reason wants me to then click another button. If I'd said rerun the whole thing, it would have just gone off and done it. So hopefully that will sort itself out. While that's going off and doing that, I'm going to do that, recreate that branch, and pull out that. Because we don't need it anymore. I'll just commit that now. Go to commit. Now you'll notice I've deleted and created this branch quite a few times. That's because the branch has gone up and then been merged. And if I start pushing an existent branch that hasn't been updated with the changes to main, it starts becoming problematic, and I can rebase it and stuff like that, but that also just becomes a faff. It's easier just to recreate the branch. It means I can follow my workflow without deviating and not having to think about it. And if you're not having to deviate from your normal workflow, you're less likely to make mistakes. So here we are, revert, printf debugging, commit that, and whiz back here, and we have failed again, and this time because... Oh, go away. No, this is not helpful. You are in the way. An error access denied exception when calling update service operation. Right. So this is where we play the do I have the correct resources. Now, interestingly, that is going AWS ID. Sorry, I've got Slack open and someone is chatting me. So what I'm going to do there is just kill Slack. Right, so yes, access denied, and there you can see there is $1 in that. That means I have not substituted something correctly, which is odd because I thought I had all of those. So back to the repository settings. I'm glad this is just a settings issue and not a code issue. It'd be much more fun to dig our way through it if it was a code issue. Nope, deployments. Which is probably not even there. It's probably in the global settings for the AWS ID, so none of those are there. Repository variables. AWS ID is set. Right, do I do something silly? No. Very confused. Let's go back at the. Let's go back and have another look at that. Let's see if I can do this. No, I can't. So I was trying to open it in another tab there, so I didn't have to keep bouncing between things. So off to our pipelines, off to our failure. I'm going to have a look at the failure. No, this is very unhelpful. My feedback to you, Bitbucket, is the "was this helpful" dialogue is incredibly unhelpful because it covers what I'm trying to see. Everything else is changing as we expect. Do we have AWS ID in here a couple of times? No. Do we need AWS ID set? No, it should be pulling from the. It should be pulling from the. From the global settings. Alex is saying you should register the definition as an artifact within pipelines and it'll serve it up in the UI. I did not know that. I have learned something. I will play with that later. Why is SAD failing on that one particular thing? We have AWS ID set. Cluster and binary. Binary is definitely set elsewhere. Have I done something stupid? Like typoed anything? I can't see a typo. There is a G on the end of it, so with a regular expression, the G goes off and does a global replace, so that should be replacing everything. We will go have a look at our task definitions. And there we have AWS ID with no dollar, which is what we expect. However, none of those are set in the global. So I'm just going to try, setting that again under deployments. See whether that does something for us. So under here, AWS ID. That one. Boink. And let's kick that off again. Did I click the wrong thing? Yes, I did. Pipelines. Rerun the failed steps. Off you go. Let's see what that does for us. So I wasn't aware that you could view artifacts within Bitbucket. So this is definitely something that I will go off and have a look at later, because that will help massively. So this is now pulling down the AWS pipe. And with this, another thing I need to do is work out, well actually I've just test it, whether you can put latest on the end rather than the specific version, because you get a warning if the version is now out of date, but I don't get notifications of warnings. Right, that has failed for the same reason. It has not updated $AWS ID. So that does mean, I'm just going to undo that change I did here. Bin that. Oh, wonderful UI. The dialog appears at the top, but you have no indication that that's happened. I just was having trouble deleting stuff a few weeks ago and sort of discovered that wonderful little thing. So it's something wrong with my set command. There's something that I'm doing wrong. There's something that I'm messing up. And bizarrely, I can't work out what it is. Now, nice easy way to check whether things are the same. Let's just go off and actually check if they are the same. And that is definitely AWS ID. And that's been set. Here's a question. Is it because I've marked it as a secured variable? Let's try running it in as an unsecured variable. So let's delete that. Shove in AWS ID, ID, yoink, unsecure it, add that, back, no, back to our pipelines. And rerun the failed step. Now, at this point, if it doesn't work, the standard reaction for most developers is to either start swearing, which I'm not allowed to do, or to cry. So let's hope this actually works. The other thing I can do is just hard code that value. I'd prefer not to, but just to sort of get around the problem for now. Why it's not caching that, I don't know. I think I said this last week as well. Something I need to go have a quick look at and work out. Boo! Yes, unless it's something else. It is something else. No, that is still not helpful. Go away. Right, so that is now actually correct. However, I'm still getting an IAM user access denied. That's likely because I've set the user up with the smallest set of permissions possible, and I probably haven't added this particular endpoint, or this particular thing, to my IAM role. So let's go do that now. IAM issues I can deal with. So that's interesting to note, is that with Bitbucket it appears it does not allow you to echo a secured variable, which I suppose is sensible when you think about it, but is a little annoying if you're not expecting that. I don't want to click that, I want to go there. Right, so it's an inline policy that I've done, and what have I given him? Let's go have a look. The Elastic Container Service. So what I've done here is I have called it bots when I was setting everything up, and then I've called it GoBot in ECS. So there's two ways to fix this. I can throw away my cluster and create a new one, which I will do. Let's trash the cluster. Now, interesting thing. Make sure you don't get your terminology wrong. If you want to delete a service running within a cluster, you go off and you say delete me, and it'll go off and delete that service. If you click delete cluster up here, it'll go away and delete the cluster and give you a very similar dialog box, because no one reads the text. All I see there is delete me. So we go delete me. So if you have accidentally deleted the cluster, and you have had the cluster build the VPC for you, it will delete the VPC on its way down. And if you deleted the cluster accidentally because you think you were deleting the service, it can be a little bit embarrassing. I speak from experience. So I would say always read the text, but no one's going to. Just be aware. Don't let the VPC be created by the cluster, so that when it does get deleted by accident, you can quite easily recreate it. So there's the cluster, now called bots. So that should match. We want this, don't we? So yes, it'll end up with service bots. No, wrong one. Wrong one. That one. So again, let's go create our thing. There's Asher. We haven't managed to get another version up. It's later. It's in bots. We call it Asher, and let's just make sure that's what we want to call it. Interestingly, no. We're calling it GoBot. So let's call it that. Actually, no, let's call it manager, because we may have more than one of these running. I'll go change the configs of that. That gets set up. One thing there. Well, that's good. We want that. We want all of these. Now, if you were doing this a lot, you might go off and create a cloud formation script, but hopefully I won't need to do this too much. None of that lot. None of that lot. None of that. All of that's good. Create the service. You'll go fall over in the background. Right, now I need to work out why this is being called GoBot, and it's doing that because of the name, and the name is set in the task definition as service name, so I need to change the service name. Ah, interesting. That needs to be binary. Or does it? No. That's the image. Someone's made a mistake here. Yes, that definitely wants to be the image. Image. Do I pass that through on this? No. Need to pass a few more things through there. Right. So, we'll do that here. Cut and paste. Watch the YAML formatting go wrong. Change that to image. Change that to $image. Yoink. Commit these two. Number 4 and use correct service name. So we can commit that. We can review that. Get that built, and while that's happening, we can go off and mess around with our repository variables. If my computer ever decides to respond. Here we go, there we go, create pull request. Lovely red exclamation mark next to main, because of course the other build is failing, but my merge check shouldn't worry about that. Into our repository settings. I feel this should be subtitled "DevOps is fun" for a given definition of fun. Right, so the binary is GoBot, which is correct. Ah, I've just spotted something. So that, oops, I'm going to do that. That needs to be saved. I went to the wrong. Managed to mash a whole load of keys there. Where was I? Task definition. Task definition. There we are. Not right there. Let's. Dun, 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 dun. Into that. Image. And that should. It's going to pull the correct image from there, and then name becomes service name. Let's go off to our deployments. So that is correct, but the family name I think is going to be wrong, because that is also service name. And the family name is GoBot. That's going to be... I've tried to be clever here, I think, and overloaded some variable names when I put this together, and have not fully thought it through. And now it's meeting with the real world. Things are not going according to plan. So the service name is going to be Asture, which is correct, and we need to add a family name, which is GoBot, because that is actually different to the cluster. Despite the fact they have the same name, that just happens to be my naming convention. So we should now, although that said, I no longer have cluster in here. Unless cluster is used, it is. Oh look, a cut and paste error. So cluster is used. Right, I have deconfused myself. I will tell you what's gone wrong. I'm now actually looking at the wrong file. I have just noticed up here. So when I mashed those keys, that'll be what confused me. I went into a different project. Right. So maybe I don't need family name anymore. Ignore the last 5 minutes. Now I'm in the correct file, GoBot task definition, and that'll be what threw me, because I was not seeing what I was expecting to see. Right, so image is. Let's go back and just confirm this. No, go away. I don't know if it's GoBot, so that is correct. That does want to be image. Service name. So we'd still do want a family name here, like that. And then cluster we are using there, and we are using there. Cool, I think that should fix a lot of our problems. And by our problems I mean my problems. Right, let's get that committed and pushed. Number 4. Fix problems with Fargate. Spell config. There we go. Chuck that in. We've already got pull request open for this, so we're just going to update that pull request. It'll kick off another build. And then we can go look and see what it is that we have actually changed with this. And Alex has suggested on YouTube, you're in the wrong project. Yes, yes, I am. Okay, so we are now adding image into our task definition. No longer catting it out because we don't need to. We are now using image rather than cluster service name, and we are using family name rather than service name and under family. So we added family in to this deployment. Yes, we did. So that should now all be good. So hopefully that will build nicely. And should I say quickly? Or not, you know. Take as long as you like. So while this is happening, I shall recount for you a true story that used to happen with our Team City install that we ran many years ago, where we were on the free version, did not have a huge number of workers. I think we had 2 workers set up, And we had my project, which was written in Go, which compiles and builds really quickly, and another project which was written in Scala, which takes 5 to 10 minutes to build. Then you've got to run the tests, then you've got to do the deployments. So I very, very quickly worked out that I was being stuck behind these Scala builds and configured one of the agents so that it would only build my Go projects. And life got a lot better for me back then. Unfortunately, I can't do similar with Bitbucket, short of giving them a lot of money, which I'm not going to do. Which reminds me, actually, I think this account is on the free tier. Let's hope I don't run out of build minutes. Because I think you only get about 60 build minutes for free. And when you're going through something like this and trying to get stuff working, you can burn through them quite quickly. Right, so that's been tagged, and you will see in... if I go have a look at the container registry, you'll see that we've built a whole bunch of versions as we've been going through this. So you've got all these old untagged ones as we go off and retag. And the reason why they get untagged is basically because I'm tagging it with dev, and then that dev tag is getting moved, and I'm tagging it with issue 4, and that is getting moved. If I had an issue 5, then issue 4 would still be there, and the dev tag would be with issue 5. As has happened with here, where you've got the 001, used to be 001 and latest has moved up one. So these untagged things will kick around. They're not huge, they're 4.5 meg. But you start to clutter things up, which is why I've set it to just bin them after 14 days. And in fact, once I've got this all set up and it's running smoothly, I'll probably get it to bin them after a day. Let's see whether we are all set and good to go. Yes, we are. Kicking out version 3. And by 3 I mean 0.0.3. Off we go. So this is the one downside of running things like this. The setup can be painful because you have to, almost by definition, go through a whole bunch of steps, which you can't test locally because this is all running almost out of my control. Once it is set up and working, though, it's just turnkey. So literally, you do your deployment by tagging it. It all goes off, it all fires up, it all runs, and you can just completely forget about it. Until such point as you need to set it up again for a different project and you've forgotten about it. One day I might actually go off and write the cloud deployments for this. Hasn't been painful enough yet, although it's getting there with this particular one. Right, so let's go have a look at our pipelines and see what's going on. This is in progress. Now to the critical step. So we've fixed the problem with the variable. We've hopefully fixed the problem with permissions by changing things around so that it is now trying to use the correct target, and we have permissions for that. So let's see what else it's going to shout at me about. That's such a sad statement. Bum 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 bum. Failed. Oh, go away. So it's still access denied, but this time we are. Why is it still GoBot? Lies. Image. That. That's the family name. That name is GoBot. Why is that name GoBot? That name should have been service name. And what did I call the service? What did I call the service? Deployments, not repository variables. That is the service name. That is the service name. Excellent. But we're getting GoBot, which is cluster. And family name. Family name's there. And only there because I've just added it. And the cluster name is only used up there. Here. Ah. Spot the, I'm going to say deliberate error. Spot the Muppetry mistake. So this wants to be a service name. Service. All of this comes from the fact that, oh actually, let's just remove. All of this comes from the fact that when I copied this across, I went, I know what, now would be a fantastic time to turn a bunch more of this stuff into placeholder variables that I can then mess around with and make it much more generic. But I did that kind of on the fly without testing it, and now I'm testing it in real world. And I have made some assumptions that are wrong. Basically. Such is life. So that should now, lovely ping of my email as I get emailed that the build's failed. Commit that. Fix service name. Anyway, the moral of the story is when you've got something that works, don't make it better, just copy it as is. At least I think that's the moral of the story. We fear change. The great news is if you have a QA team and you're actually pushing this off to a Fargate deployment that's running a QA or a test environment, even once you've got all of this sorted up, your QA team may just throw it back in your face because it doesn't work. For my purposes, eventually, once this becomes a sort of a real running thing, my QA team is going to be Alex, who has various requests of things he wants the bot to do. I think moons and sticks have been mentioned, but I'm sure we'll be able to accommodate him. And should we ever get this to deploy, next week we'll probably start looking at adding some of those moons and sticks. And one of the things we'll have to do with that is actually open up some of the ports on the deployment, because we've talked about adding a webhook. And from there we may need to actually add some webby stuff to the bot. We may need to add some authentication to the bot. But again, I have a whole lot of libraries that deal with that kind of thing. It's nice and simple. It amuses me that Safari seems to think that there is a translation available for this page. Which clearly means it does not think that this is English. And Alex has posted, I don't know what. Is that a moon on a stick? It's a very small icon on the chat window that I have. Merge that in. Now this starts becoming a very good test of how bad a day you are having, because I need to remember that my next version is 0.0.4, but the build is going to take a minute or so. So we click into here, and then by the time the build's built, can I still remember what tag I'm supposed to give it? And on particularly bad days, no, I can't, and I end up going back to the commits window to go have a look and then come back here. On really bad days, I will forget in the time it takes me to click on the commit hash. Let's hope today is not a really bad day. It's not been the best, but we are making progress, and that is the key thing. Also, I've not had to Google anything yet. This just means I'm making the same mistakes that I always make. So what do we say? 0.0.4. No, 4, not 45. 45 is gone. Tag has been created. And that will now go off and build yet another image. Alex is suggesting another idea for Bitbucket's UI, a last used tag. Now there's an idea. And also to be less, emoji. Look at the chat. You'll see the emoji. You know the emoji I mean. The soft whip chocolate ice cream version. Pipelines. It is interesting that I have become very used to the Bitbucket API and UI and doing stuff, and when you're actually talking through and seeing some of the things, especially on this size screen, normally when I'm dealing with this on a much bigger screen, so that little pop-up thing doesn't cause me problems. And I'm used to having to remember what the tag is. I mean, there may be a way of sorting it. And then you have to say out loud, oh, I do this thing every single time, and you realise that, yes, it's dumb. It can always be fun when you're explaining to a new joiner about your process and how you do things. And they question a bit and go, why do you do this? It seems dumb. You're like, well, because we've always done it that way and we haven't had a chance to go and fix it yet. And yes, now that I explain it to you, it does sound dumb. But that's the way we do it. Knock yourself out if you want to change it. Let's go have a look and actually see what this one's doing. It's deploying to the file gates. Or not, as the case may be, and we haven't actually managed to deploy yet. We have quite successfully failed to deploy 4 times. In the space of an hour and a half. Oh, not again. Right, what do we go away? It's not authorized. Resource Gabbles. Why is that not bots? Right, I'm not going to argue with that anymore in terms of trying to get that name changed. Oh, hang on. It's bots now, not. Why is that GoBot? That's name GoBot. That name is coming from, or family name's not. Did I not put family name in here? Did I put family name up in here, in the wrong project? I probably did. Oops. So you have to remember I've been programming for more decades than I would care to admit, and yet I still make dumb mistakes. And that's something really key to sort of take to heart, is it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this stuff, or dumb mistakes are a fact of life. Don't beat yourself up about them, just laugh them off and try and fix things. So family name has gone wrong, so that would have caused us issues a little bit later. But the thing that I want to know is why it's coming off as GoBot not bots, and that's because we're using that name, and name is service name. It's cluster, it's up here, it's in this one, which is service name, which is Astro. And the cluster is now bots. Right, bets on whether this one actually works. The file. What did we change? Oh yes, family name. Good thing I spotted that, because I could just rerun the build. No, I've changed that variable, but it would then fall over with this bit, so we may as well just get it all fixed up. Review that. Off we go. And you'll notice, even though we're not Googling for stuff, even though we're not searching for things, the march to the right of the browser tabs progresses apace. I always love you get screenshots from people who apologise for the number of tabs they got open. You're like, that's nothing. Because what I have here is a new browser window that I opened specifically for this stream, and you can't see the other one that I got open, which has a fair few more tabs. Right, we'll wait for you to build. Excuse me. Hopefully, I have fixed every issue. But as they say, fifth time is a charm. Or not, as the case may be. I have had some classic ones where I've been giving lectures to students. And again, with students, I tend to just actually go and do 2 hours worth of my job, effectively, in order to help them see that when you leave university, you don't suddenly become this magical being that is faultless and knows how to program. And I've been faced in a situation where I've had 100 and so faces staring at me in one of these large auditoriums, and my code is not compiling. So I've asked the question, can anyone spot why my code is not compiling? And I get absolute silence back. And then I realise they probably think that I'm posing some kind of predefined question. So I had to change it and go, no, honestly, I don't know why my code is not compiling. I have 100 and something people staring at me. My mind has gone blank. I'm beginning to panic. It's not building. Can anyone help? As it was, I had eclipsed a variable, and one of the students in the front row very kindly pointed that out, and I was able to go, yes, I've been dumb, and fix that. But there is nothing like having an audience to put you under huge amounts of pressure when things are not going right. I do love the fact that because we've now got onto the final deployment stage, we do have a little interspersion of green ticks in amongst our somewhat sad collection of red exclamation marks. So, wait for this to build, then we can tag it. Let's just close some of, leave you open because you've got, leave you open, and I'm going to puddle off over there, so I've got those to hand as well. I don't have to keep bouncing between things. I don't know why I've got two S3 management consoles open. Get rid of that. So we should be slightly less browser tabbed. That's built. Hurrah! And version 5. Create tag. And that's going to go off. And try and do another release. Yoink. Yoink. There we go. And round we go again. So part of the reason why I build the Linux target, despite the fact that this is almost certainly building on a Linux machine, is that I can't be 100% sure what target I'm actually running on. I've noticed that AWS has started moving towards ARM servers, and they are substantially cheaper than Intel. So it just means that I'm pretty much guaranteed that I will build the correct binary image for the Docker container, which I know is going to be a Linux variant. Here we go. It's doing stuff, and you'll notice there was a warning. Oh, that was pushed to VCR. Ah, so sad. You will notice there was a warning there about the version had increased by 1, which I hadn't spotted before. So I will need to increase that. Like I say, I'll try latest at some point, but I'll do that after the stream. So sad, I got my hopes up there. I thought that had gone off and was doing stuff. But no, it was the bit that already works. Okay, that is now what I'm expecting. So that can't access bots. Ashjo. In my clusters, I should have bots. Ashjo, and my IAM role is that. Ah. I don't know if you spotted that, but we're EU West 2. Oops, wrong one. We're there. So yes. So my IAM role was slightly wrong. Let's just update that as well. Save those changes. And nope. There. Rerun that failed step. So at least we're back into being able to rerun failed steps rather than having to go through the whole process. So we're getting closer. We make progress. Very slow progress. Soon we will find out whether it's gone any further. Yes! Hurrah! Now, I fully expect that to fall flat on its face in Fargate. But we have actually now got this talking to Fargate, so we can start the process of doing deploys from within Bitbucket. So let's off to here. Let's just refresh this. Now that's running Cobot 5 and is active. logs. No results just yet. One easy way to check is to go here, and there is no Astio. So it's not up and running just yet. Desired running count is 0. Let's go off and see the stopped versions of that and find out why it fell over. Tasks. Oh, right, it hasn't started yet. I've been a little bit too fast. So what will have happened there is the Bitbucket pipeline would have said, please replace the previous version of the bot with this new version. And you'll note our task definition has gone up to version 5, despite the fact that we didn't do 5 edits. I think some of those attempts of pushing things through, we had access to change the task definition, just not run the task itself. So the build has gone through and actually provided us with tasks. So we're still pending. It's just... there we go, it did stop. But I was expecting that because... Well, that's a lie. Or is it? I want ECS. I want that one. I want ECR. Idom Davis GoBot. We've got a latest in there. And it is all of that. Yoink. And ECS is telling me that... Let's just actually, before we do that, so what I've done here, normally I would run all of my stuff out of AWS Ireland, which is EU West 1. Recently, for reasons, I have started running all of my stuff out of EU West 2. Oops, wrong one. Which is London, and therefore in the UK. And what I've copied has been running in EU West 1. I may actually need to put region in there. Actually, I do have region. AWS region. Let's do this. AWS region. Replace all. There we go. So that will stop that from ever happening again, he says, naively. Get that in. Use region variable other than hard coding, because hard coding leads to problems. Will this be the last time through the loop? It needs to be one of the last, otherwise it's going to be tune in next week for where we actually get this thing to work. So yes, a very simple 1 instead of a 2. Thankfully AWS is reasonably good at saying what's gone wrong once you've got used to how AWS works. Initially the error messages are a bit sort of like, why? But I've been using it enough that I can actually sort of look at it and go, what have I done wrong? Because invariably it is me and not AWS. So I'm just going to wait for this to build. And then we'll fire up attempt number 6. It amuses me that if this was a large organisation, attempt number 6 would be 3 years down the line. So we'll approve that. We will merge that. And then we will go off to that. Wait for it to build a name. Now my phone, sorry, that's me dropping my phone. It's been very slow in emailing me. Because I got the build failure for the last time that we failed. I got that through just as that one actually passed. And also a notification from Bitbucket about the fact that you can now do parallel manual steps, which means that I may be able to run these steps in parallel if I can work out what the magic incantation is. Because one assumes if they're saying you can now do manual parallel steps, you can always do automatic parallel steps. That's one of those things where you're always learning. Right, 0.0.6 for our next one. And the bot is reminding us, don't forget to join the Discord, and giving the lovely link, and to smash that like button. I'm not entirely sure how one smashes the like button. I suppose if you're on a MacBook, you can, or a MacBook Pro, you can force press the button or something. Right, we're reasonably confident that's going to work. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. Which means that we can come back here. We can go here. So this is still running off version 5 because that build has not completed. And what it's doing is it's noticing that it's failed to deploy, and it's just trying again. And it will keep trying in the background, just trying to provision it and run it up. At some point it'll get a notification from Bitbucket that, hey, I want to deploy a new thing with the task definition of GoBot 6, and it'll try and provision from that. It's serendipity that we've got our minor version number and the task definition to line up, just in terms of the things that I've actually managed to talk to AWS in our failed builds. That will go out of sync once we got to version 0.1. Let's just see how that particular build is going. Still in progress. So while that's doing, I shall remind you that we have a Patreon, however you want to pronounce it, scheme where you can sponsor Nordev for as little or as much as you like a month. Basically, Nordev is run for free, and we normally, in more sensible times, have quite a large annual conference where the majority of one hesitates to call it income, but the majority of the money for the group comes from. And of course, we've had to cancel this year. So we've had to adapt. That's part of the reason why we do these streams, and that's part of the reasons why we've moved to slightly different formats. But it has also meant that we can meet a much wider audience, so it hasn't all been bad. But yes, if you like what you see, go visit on Patreon, and Alex will be putting the link up on the chat, won't you, Alex? Shortly. Meanwhile, we've built, and it is now provisioned in GoLang 6. So normally it would have to deprovision the previous version, but because that was just falling flat on its face very quickly, that wouldn't have taken very long. Or we may have actually hit it in a position where it was already stopped. So let's give that a quick refresh. Oh, that's fallen over as well. Oh, such sad. Ordering. Gotta love it. It's ordering by the task ID, not the actual time that things went wrong. But that's where we... Oops, no, don't do that. Stopped. That was the tag that we had. Gabbles 6. We're actually on the task. And let's see what... No results in there. We've got to even get that far. What are you complaining about now? Cannot start container error. Failed to initialize the login driver. Failed to create CloudWatch login stream. Resource not found exception. To the Googles. Oops, done that too many times. Let's get rid of that. No, boink. How do I troubleshoot? Oh right, you've actually got to have a log group created. I suspect it's because my IAM role is not allowed to create it, because I've never had to do that before. What is it? Forgetting acronyms. There it is. CloudWatch. CloudWatch. Ironically enough, is what's happening at the moment. As the cloud watches me flail around. Or at least YouTube does. Right, so let's create a resource group. Somehow. Actions. No. Log groups. But there is a log group called Astro. Now I'm very confused. Ah, the log group is called bots. How bizarre. Why did that not get created? When I set this up and did it manually, I put in a log group of Astro. Oops, this is the wrong screen. And when I had the config file that Bitbucket put together, that had bots. That's what's gone wrong. Let's get rid of this. Yes. Let's create a new log group. This will be why I've never had to do this before. Is it ECS slash bots, was it? Yes. Let's actually put the slash in there just in case the ECS bots. Retention setting. Weak. this should be trying again and again and again in the background, and should just be able to where are you? 0 running. You should be starting one up fairly soon. Yes, no. No. Oops, wrong button. Did not want that at all. Go away. Oh, please tell me that didn't open in the same window I was in. Gotta love AWS's UI. That's the S3. There have been quite a few comments on the Nordev server about the AWS UI and it being not something to aspire to. I've got to say, Google's cloud and Azure are not much better. They're just poor in different ways. Right, let's get this organised by start time. Can I organise it by start time? Seriously. So there's only one, no, there's 2 6 in there. It's still a desired state of that. Let's just force an update. So I'm going to update, and one of the things you can do is just force new deployment. That just says use everything that I've got currently. Let's just skip to review. Use everything I've got set up. Just force it to rerun. So that's my deployment that's going off. I've got an active and a primary now. So the primary is the one that's coming on stream, the active is the one that has been deregistered. So that's now provisioning this task. Boom, 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 boom. Pending. Let's go look at logs in a new. I can't do that in a new tab. Stop. And why have you stopped? You have stopped because no message is there. Hopefully this has stopped because of an empty config file. Nope, we've got that error again. No such file or directory. How are we telling this to run? The entry point is .gobot. What are we saying with .gobot there? What are we saying with our task definition for the actual entry point? Oh, that's interesting. Let's just can I delete that? I'll delete that later. That obviously got created when I had my my typo. Right, that's using AshJoe task definitions. Okay, that's that one. No. Gobot. That one. Interesting. Let's just quickly edit this because I can edit this here and then so we create a new revision. I can edit this here and then update the config file if I need to, all the environment variables and everything. So let's just have a quick look at what's going on here. So there's a couple of things to note. first of all, it seems to be able to create these task definitions without me doing it first, which is nice. Obviously, I have been doing something wrong in the past, and I don't have to go through that painful manual step. Next up, let's just do that. Update that. Create that. So we've now got GoBot 7. I can go back to my cluster. I can turn around and I can say, update this. And please run from revision 7. Skip to review, update the service, and it should restart itself and get away from that horrible error message about things going wrong. So again, back in the pending state, this should go up fairly quickly because running. Now I'm quite surprised about that. This is not running. Right, okay, so I'm not entirely sure what is going wrong with this particular error. I will go compare it against some of the other setups I've got and just see what I've missed, so that hopefully by the start of next week we will actually have this up and running. There's obviously something wrong with my config, so I will sort this out over the week, and then next Wednesday we'll be able to open with the dumb thing that I have done that is stopping this from actually running. But we're close. The Docker image is actually running, it is actually executing. There is just something going wrong with the way I've told it to execute. Alex has put the Patreon up on the chat. Very, very easy, https nor.dev/Patreon. When they released the .dev domain, we were all over the fact that we could get nor. Apologies to Norway and other places that may have wanted nor.dev. Sorry. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me for what has been an episode of Dom Flails Around with AWS, which is an experience I suspect is familiar to many people. And next Wednesday we will be running this again for episode 5 of 4, because we can't count, where it should hopefully be Dom has stopped flailing around with AWS and can start flailing around with Go and Discord again. Like I say, we are very close. There is just something that I have messed up somewhere, but I can do that. I can do that offline and let you know what's going on. So thank you very much for listening. If you listen to the live stream, thank you very much for watching. If you're watching this after the fact, I've been Dom Davis, and I will speak to you next week. Ciao.